Hi there, I'm Peter Millard, and this is 10 Minute Workshop, where 10 minutes in the workshop is never enough. In this week's short video, I'm going to take a look at the spraying hardware that I've been using, so the sprayer rather than the spraying. That's coming up next. So I've just posted the first part of my Playing with Spraying series, where I go through a 4-month-long deep dive into a long-term sort of soak test on the Graco Ultramax Airless sprayer. As always, got some great comments, lots of great feedback in the comments from lots of people. But I thought it might be worth going through a few of them to address some of the questions and concerns that you had. A lot of people have said, "Oh, why are you using that toy? Why don't you use a proper insert the preferred spraying method here," kind of thing. This is a Graco Ultramax. It's a professional level cordless airless sprayer, so it is absolutely a proper tool. 600 quid's worth, not a solenoid type decking and fencing sprayer. If you're not familiar with the airless sprayers, it might be worth spending a couple of minutes just to explain what they are. So most sort of traditional type of sprayers work on the same basic principle, very similar to the sort of spray diffuser that you might have had at school or recognised from craft shows. You have a container, a jar of some kind with your paint in it. The gun has a tube that goes down into it, and you apply pressure across the top of that tube. That sucks the paint up and sprays it out. In the case of these little spray diffusers, obviously you're blowing through it. You wouldn't want to spray a whole door with one of those, you'd be shattered at the end of it. And the principle is the same even with spray cans. With a spray can, you have a compressed gas inside that provides the oomph to suck up the paint, but with everything else you have compressed air. Now these do have pros and cons. With a compressor-based system, it's very simple, but you do need quite a large compressor to make it work. You need a steady, regulated flow of air, so the bigger the compressor, the better. I only have a small compressor, and to be honest, I barely use it, so I decided not to try and use that compressor for this spraying job. I also have a small, high-volume, low-pressure system. It's a relatively cheap little Airless one. It's not particularly good. I've used it a few times and I didn't like it much. But the principle with HVLP is that it feeds a lot of air, high volume, but at lower pressure. So supposedly be better for overspray and the paint dust that gets in the air. The disadvantage of that is that you have a turbine running all the time. So it's like a Hoover running sort of constantly. Now with these traditional sort of air-fed spray guns, you have a needle which can be varied, and there's adjustments that you can make. You can have different size of needles to different types of paint, and it's a bit of a learning curve, a bit of a merry dance to find the right sort of balance for the right fan shape for the paint, for the material that you're using. Now the airless sprayer, on the other hand, doesn't have any of that kind of stuff. It's very, very simple mechanically. It actually pumps the paint out rather than uses compressed air, hence airless. And these cordless ones are very, very useful, very, very handy. It particularly appealed to me because it is so mobile and so portable. I particularly didn't want to drag a compressor around to a client's house. Part of this job is actually some decorating, some painting within their house, because they wanted the walls to match the woodwork, the cabinetry that I'm building. And that's fairly complicated, fairly involved. I didn't want to drag a compressor into there. I didn't really want to drag an HVLP system into there either. So a completely self-contained cordless setup like this was particularly appealing. Now these aren't cheap, it's got to be said. This one is the top of the line Ultramax, and this is around about the £600 mark. We've had a few comments in the comments about how expensive they are. Generally speaking, airless sprayers are pretty pricey. The cheapest I could find just looking online was about £300, and that's for a very much a workshop-based 7.5 litre hopper of paint. Mains powered, not exactly portable. And the other headache with that, of course, is that if you want to change paint colours or finishes, you want to switch from primer to a top coat, that hopper's got to be taken out, emptied, cleaned. You've got to flush the line through before you can start spraying again. With this little guy, it all comes down to these very clever little flex liners, these 1 litre cups. You can have these ready-made, ready prepared with your paints in. Just a quick flush through, then you're up and running with another finish. Oh yeah, there was one other thing. Somebody in the comments said, oh, you should read the manual. And the manual's this thick. I'm not going to say to this thing, if I started reading that, I'd never get anywhere. I'd never have sprayed anything. Much better from my point of view to whack some paint into it and start spraying, learning by doing. That's my motto. I hope you've enjoyed this quick informational video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.